My father's old chimney sweep retired 11 years back, and somehow his client list ended up in a filing cabinet my boss bought secondhand at an estate sale. The kind of detail that seems meaningless right up until it isn't. And let me tell you, in this business, that's usually how the bad ones announce themselves. Not with a bang. With a filing cabinet nobody thought twice about. That's the only explanation I've got for why the call came to us at all. A woman named Delphine Ashworth, out past the reservoir, wanting her chimney swept before, and I'm quoting the letter here, the cold settles in properly. Now, I don't know what business you're in, but I can tell you nobody in mine sweeps a chimney in September. September's for football and pumpkin spice, and pretending the year's got more road left in it than it does. But she was paying triple our going rate, and I'd just made junior partner in an outfit that consisted of me, my boss, and his nephew who mostly just held the tarps. So I wasn't in a position to get choosy about which months a woman wanted her flue cleaned. The address didn't mean a thing to me until I was halfway down the road and past the old Methodist chapel on the corner. Boarded up now, windows gone milky with dust, but I'd have sworn on my mother's grave I once sat through a Christmas Eve service in that building. Back before my father moved us out to the coast. I was 8 then, and here's the thing about me and 8 years old. I don't have much of anything before it. My therapist calls that developmentally consistent, which is a hell of a phrase for a woman who charges by the hour, and I've never once pushed her to explain what exactly she thinks it's being consistent with. I found the house at the end of a long gravel road, backed up hard against a stand of black pine that ate up most of the afternoon light before it ever got a chance to reach the yard. And the chimney. Lord, the chimney. It rose a good 6 feet above where any sane chimney has business rising, tapering up at the top like it was reaching for more sky than the job required. I sat there in the truck looking at it the way you'd look at a dog that hadn't barked yet, but was thinking about it. She hadn't called, see? She'd written an honest-to-God letter, and the handwriting on it did something to the back of my neck I couldn't rightly name. Careful? Sure. But careful in the way of somebody copying shapes off a page, rather than writing words they actually understood. Sweep before frost, it said. Ladder around back. I do not come down for visitors. Leave invoice in the tin by the door, and take what is owed from the jar in the kitchen. I sat in that truck a good long while before I made myself get out. If I'm honest, some part of me already knew that was the smart move, and some other part of me, the part that pays the bills, won out anyway. That's usually how it goes, isn't it? The smart part loses more often than folks like to admit. The ladder around back led up to a widow's walk I hadn't been able to see from the drive. A narrow railed platform circling the chimney stack, built, best I could tell, for the exact purpose of letting a man do his job without ever once needing to step inside that house. Somebody had planned that. Planned it careful. The way you plan around a thing you don't want getting loose. I worked 2 hours up there. Standard job, if you didn't count the proportions. The flue was wider than any residential chimney I've swept before or since. Wide enough a grown man could have folded himself down into it if the notion ever took him, which mine sure as hell did not. Every time I leaned the brush in past a certain depth, the hair on my arms stood up like I'd walked into a walk-in freezer. Wasn't cold though, not the kind you feel on your skin, the other kind. Somewhere around the second hour, I heard something come through the wall of the house itself. Not down the chimney, through the actual wall, like it was traveling through the studs. A low groan, the kind wood makes settling under a weight it wasn't built to carry, except this one went on a good sight longer than any settling woods got business doing. I told myself it was pipes. You tell yourself all kinds of things, standing on a ladder 6 feet above a roofline, with woods on 3 sides of you and a house behind you that's already shown you it's got secrets. Pipes is usually the first lie a person reaches for. Convenient. Boring. Exactly the kind of lie that's easy to believe, because believing it means you get to keep doing your job. When I finished, I climbed down and found the tin exactly where the letter promised. Invoice in, and I went hunting for the jar. Kitchen door was unlocked, which I want to flag for you, because I'd have bet money a woman this particular about ladders and not receiving visitors would have kept her house shut up tight as a drum. It swung open easy as anything, and the kitchen inside was neat as a pin. Old-fashioned. A jar sat on the counter right where she said, cash rolled up inside, counted out, here's the detail that stuck with me. Counted out by feel. Not laid flat and smooth the way a sighted person counts money. Rolled tight the way you'd count bills in the dark. There was more in there than my invoice called for. A lot more. I was still thumbing through it when the second sound came. Closer this time. Right above the kitchen. In a spot where by any reasonable floor plan there shouldn't have been a room at all. Just crawl space, roof joist, and dust. A tapping. Slow. Unhurried. 3 knocks. A pause. 3 knocks. A pause. Like something testing a wall to see how thick it was before deciding whether it was worth the trouble of coming through it. Now, I want to level with you here because I've had a lot of nights since to think about what I should have done versus what I actually did. What I should have done was leave that jar of money on the counter and walk myself straight back to the truck without so much as a look over my shoulder. What I actually did was stand at the bottom of a narrow staircase I'd somehow missed on the way in, staring up into a dark that had a texture to it I didn't like one bit, and feeling something in my chest I can only call recognition. Not fear, exactly. Fear's cousin. The one that shows up right before you remember something you spent a whole lot of years and a good deal of therapy trying not to. The stairs led out into an attic that ran the entire length of the house, low-ceilinged everywhere except directly above that great chimney stack, where the roof had been built up special into a kind of vaulted little chamber. Just tall enough for a person to stand in, or almost tall enough. Whatever was living up there had folded itself near double just to fit. I want to describe what I saw accurate because I've turned it over in my head so many times since that I'm scared I've gone and polished it into something cleaner than it actually was, the way memory does when you're not watching it close enough. It was tall, taller than any living thing has business being, limbs too long for whatever joints were supposed to be holding them together, skin the color and grain of ash-gray soot packed down hard into something like the shape of a body. Its face, when it turned toward me, had a soft, unfinished look to it, like whoever built the thing had been working off a description somebody gave them once, rather than a photograph they could check their work against. And the hands. Christ, the hands. Long-fingered, black with soot ground into every crease like it'd been there since before soot was a word. I knew those hands. I don't know any better way to put what happened next, except to tell you a door in my head that'd been shut a good 20 years came open all at once, and everything that had been sitting patient behind it walked on through, single file, like it'd been waiting its whole life for an invitation. I remembered the cellar. My father used to put me down there when I cried too much, which, as a small child, I did plenty, and I understand now, for reasons that were entirely his fault and none of mine. That cellar had a coal chute feeding down into the old chimney base, a narrow iron door I was too small to reach the latch on, even if I'd had a mind to try. I remembered curling up against that door, because it was the one spot down there that wasn't bone cold, on account of heat coming down through it from somewhere up above. I remembered the tapping. 3 knocks, a pause. Used to tap back myself sometimes, just so I'd have something to do besides be scared in the dark. I remembered food showing up at the base of that chute that had no earthly business showing up. Bread still warm from somewhere, an apple, one time a whole chicken leg wrapped up in a strip of cloth that smelled like wood smoke. Never questioned it, not once, not as a kid. Children don't question mercy. They just take what's handed to them and say thank you with their whole stomachs. I remembered my scalp itching something awful from lice my father never once thought worth the bother of treating, and I remembered something reaching down through that chute, fingers longer than any fingers had a right to be, but gentle with it, working through my hair, patient as you please, until the itching finally quit. I remembered warmth. Not the kind that's got a thing to do with the actual temperature of a cellar. The other kind. The kind that comes from not being alone in the dark anymore. And I remembered the night my father found me curled against that chute, instead of huddled in the corner where he'd left me, and how it made him angrier than I'd ever once seen him. Angrier, I understood even then, because some animal part of him had picked up on something the rest of him wasn't smart enough to name. Something in his own house had started keeping his boy. Not him. He went for the poker beside the stove. I remembered the sound that chimney made when he raised it to bring it down on me, and something came through that narrow iron door that had no business fitting through it at all. An arm, black as a chimney sweep's own hands, wrapping around him quick as a snake before that poker ever finished its swing. I remembered him going up, just like that. Feet leaving the cellar floor like they'd never once belonged to the ground. and I remembered the particular quiet that settled in a minute later. The kind of quiet a house makes when something that used to live in it doesn't anymore, and every board in the place seems to know it before you do. They found what was left of him 3 days on, half a mile downriver, and the coroner wrote it up as a fall. Structural fault in the old stack, they said. There was a chunk of collapsed brick nearby that explained the injuries well enough for a small town in a hurry to close its books and get back to its supper. Nobody asked what an 8-year-old was doing sleeping against a coal chute. Nobody asked why, in the months that followed, that same boy stopped crying so much, put a little meat back on his bones, started sleeping the whole night through for what I'm told was the first time in his short life anybody could remember. Nobody asked, on account of there being nobody left who could have been asked it. The thing in the attic hummed at me. 3 low notes, over and over. Same pattern I now understood I'd been hearing echo up a chimney flue since I was small enough myself to fit down a coal chute. I sat down on that attic floor across from it and didn't run. Every sensible bone in my body was hollering at me to, and I want credit for staying anyhow because I don't know that I'd manage the same twice. "You've been here the whole time," I said. Wasn't a question, and we both knew it wasn't. It tilted its head at me. Something moved behind that soft, unfinished face, something I want to call recognition, though I'll grant you I'm not the most reliable judge of what a thing like that is capable of feeling. Couldn't tell you how long I sat up there. Long enough the light through that one small attic window went from afternoon gold clean over to the flat gray that comes right before evening properly sets in. Long enough, anyway, to finally ask the one question that mattered. "Why'd you let me forget?" Didn't answer in words. Not sure it had words the way I mean the term, but it reached toward me with one long, sooty finger, and where it touched my forehead, one more piece slid quietly into place. Quieter than all the rest, gentler too. I understood it the way you understand things that show up without any language attached to carry them. It hadn't taken my memory from me at all. It had simply held on to the worst parts itself so I wouldn't have to go on carrying them. All those years, it'd been shouldering that weight alone, the way you'd carry a sleeping kid up a long flight of stairs so they never had to wake up for the hard part of the climb. I never told my boss why the Ashworth job ran 4 hours past estimate. Told him the flu was worse than expected, needed a second pass. And he didn't push it, on account of a September chimney job paying triple rate not being the kind of thing you go asking too many questions about. Not in this economy. I go back now, every couple months, on my own clock. Bring food up through that same coal chute, the way I picture it once brought food up to me. Nothing fancy, small things. Not because I figure it needs to eat the way you or I understand eating, but because I've come to believe the ritual of the thing matters to something that spent the better part of its existence learning how to love through exactly that gesture, and never got taught any other way to say it. Delphine Ashworth, I found out eventually from the county records office, was the elderly woman who owned that house before it passed on to an estate that never once got claimed. Died in that house back in '94. Nobody's lived there since, not on paper. Those letters, I've come around to believing, aren't written by anybody the county would recognize as a person at all. Just something that learned her name off an old deed once, and decided a name was the safest, quietest way it knew to ask a favor of a world that had long since stopped expecting to hear from it. I don't rightly know what to call the thing up in that attic. Don't know that it's got a name of its own, or particularly wants one. But it kept me, fed me, took the one piece of violence that mattered clean out of my life, at a cost I still don't fully understand, and maybe never will. And it never asked a single thing in return except that somebody, someday, remember it had been kind. So I'm putting it down here, not for anybody else's benefit, just so it's sitting somewhere outside my own skull, in case one day I go and forget all over again, the way I did before, the way a mind will sometimes decide to be merciful, whether you ever gave it permission to or not. And some evenings, once I've left what I brought at the bottom of that old coal chute, I sit down in that cellar a good while longer than I strictly need to. And I swear to you, if I sit quiet enough, long enough, I can still hear it humming those same 3 notes back down to me through the dark.